And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Hi there, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan, and this is your Alaska Marine Weather Outlook on Monday, November 10th, 2025. And we start out with the state of the sea ice. The ice is growing and expanding here along the Beaufort Sea coast, from the entrance of McKenzie River all across to Utqiagvik. We find the Chukchi Sea still has a fair amount of open water, but along the coastline, ice development continues, and that will only increase here as we get further along into November and early December. But of note, later tonight into early Tuesday morning, we have an area of low pressure over the center of the Gulf, with an occluded front pushing inland through the inner channels. This has gusty winds, along with rain at sea level and in lower elevations, with snow in the inner coastal mountains. And then as we look west, we still have a weak area of low pressure along the lower Yukon coast. That'll continue to weaken, but it still has some lower clouds. Areas of light snow or flurries, nothing too terribly heavy. This feature will remain in place at least through the day Tuesday. And then back to the west, this front has high-end gale force winds with gusts to near storm force as it works its way across the western Aleutians tonight into Tuesday. And by Tuesday afternoon, we find the low pressure over the northern Gulf beginning to pull back to the west and weaken. The front into the inner channels here of the Panhandle will also be in the process of weakening toward a trough. We also have the low along the lower Yukon coast weakening with just a few light snow showers or flurries that remain, and the front pushing through the eastern Aleutians will have gale force winds as we go through the day on Tuesday. Into Wednesday, we find the low in the western Gulf along the eastern Kenai will further weaken, with just a trough that lingers back along the outer portion of the northern northeastern Gulf Coast to a low that's impacting areas along the Washington-Oregon coast. But back here to the west, this front that had come across the Aleutians will continue to further weaken on Wednesday, though it could have some breezy conditions up along the YK Delta, especially into Bristol Bay and Kuskokwim Bay, with a little bit of light snow along with that. So the marine forecast on Tuesday for the Panhandle areas and eastern Gulf Coast, we expect the front to lie right here in the inner channels. Ahead of it, southeast winds around 25 knots, waves 5-6 feet, Lynn Canal, Stevens Passage, as much as 8 feet here, Dixon Entrance outside of Metlakatla. Otherwise, southwest winds to 25 knots off of Prince of Wales Island, Sitka, outside of Cross Sound, with waves running 16 to 18 feet. Winds are more westerly outside of Yakutat Bay toward Cape Suckling, 20 to 25 knots. Winds will come down on Wednesday. Look for northerly winds for the inner channels, 15 knots. Waves generally 2-3 feet, but could be as high as 5-6 feet here in Dixon Entrance. And then as we get out along the outer coast, Sitka down to Craig, winds northerly 10 to 15 knots, waves 8 to 9 feet. Variable winds outside of Cross Sound turning easterly 10 to 15 knots out toward Cape Suckling, 7 to 8 foot waves. For the northwestern Gulf, winds will be northerly 20 knots within Prince William Sound, waves 2-3 feet there. Kayak Island could see northerly winds of 30 knots with gusts to 40 knots coming down there through the Copper River outflow region. And then lower Cook Inlet also looking at some stronger winds west to northwest, 30 knots with waves 8 feet or so toward the Barren Islands and Kennedy Entrance. For Wednesday, winds will come down further across the region. Northeast winds to 10 knots, Prince William Sound, waves a couple of feet. Variable winds 10 knots along the eastern Kenai coast, and then coming down Cook Inlet, north winds generally 10 to 15 knots, waves 2 to 3 feet. Kodiak Island will see westerly winds on Tuesday at 20 to 25 knots, waves 6 feet, Shelikof Strait, 8-9 feet on the east side of Kodiak Island. And as we come down along the Alaska Peninsula, winds will be west or northwest at 20 knots, waves 5 to 7 feet North Pacific side, 6 to as high as 10 feet off of Cold Bay. And for Wednesday, variable winds 10 knots within the vicinity of Kodiak Island, waves just a couple of few feet. Those winds are going to try to turn back south-southeasterly, at least middle upper portions of the peninsula, before becoming southwest at 20 to 25 knots either side there, Cold Bay to False Pass, with waves of 5 to 6 feet. Now, as we watch that front work its way into the eastern Aleutians, or I should say central Aleutians, on Tuesday. We're going to have winds west-southwest 15 knots around Dutch Harbor and the far eastern Aleutians, increasing southwest winds to 30 knots Nikolsky, but then flipping southeasterly 35-knot gales along the front. And as that's Atka to Adak, and then we get west of Adak, look for 40 to 45-knot gale force winds and waves building upwards of 15 to near 20 feet in the western Aleutians. Those winds will come down on Wednesday. The front continues its way to working westward. We're generally expecting, I should say eastward, generally looking at 20 to 25-knot westerly winds around Unalaska, but winds become west-southwest and pick up 25 to 30 knots west of Adak through Kiska and Shemya, with waves 15 to 20 feet out that way. For the southwest coast, generally west winds within Bristol Bay and Kuskokwim Bay at 20 knots with waves 4 or 5 feet. West winds 15 knots out toward the Pribilovs with waves as high as 11 feet. Along the lower Yukon coast, north-northwest winds 15 knots, waves 3 to 4 feet, and northeast winds of 10 knots within Norton Sound with waves 2 to 3 feet. On Wednesday, as that front kind of stretches up further north and east, it's going to increase the offshore flow. So we're looking at easterly winds of 30 knots out of Kuskokwim and Bristol Bays to St. Matthew. West winds on the other side at St. Paul and St. George at 25 knots, waves 9 feet. And then along the lower Yukon coast in the Norton Sound, look for easterly winds 15 to 20 knots with waves of 3 to 4 feet. As we go up through the Bering Strait on Tuesday, west side of the Seward Peninsula, north side of St. Lawrence Island, look for north winds of 15 to 20 knots, waves 3, 4 feet, though as high as 5 to 6 feet over toward Gamble. As we round out the Lisburn Peninsula, northeast winds could increase to 20 knots there at Cape Lisburn. And then along Wainwright to Kaktovik, winds will generally be out of the east at 10 to 15 knots, maybe falling off a bit, turning northeasterly at Kaktovik. And for Wednesday, along the Beaufort Sea coast, east winds of 15 to 20 knots. If there is any open areas, waves could be running upwards of 3 feet. As we come down around Wainwright, 20-knot east winds, and also 20-knot east winds out of Kotzebue Sound, with waves running at least a few feet there. And then finally through the Bering Strait on Wednesday and into the west side of the Seward Peninsula, including Wales, Port Clarence to Nome, as well as the north side of St. Lawrence Island. Winds on Wednesday will be easterly at 15 to 20 knots with waves anywhere from 2 to as much as 4 feet on the north side of St. Lawrence Island.